In this video, we're going to look at what you could get for £1 in 1971 in Britain. I've chosen 1971 because it was the year of decimalisation. That was when we went from pounds, shillings and pence to the metric, pounds and new pence. Incidentally, pence is the plural word for penny. I didn't know that either. So let's have a look at how the prices were back then compared to today as of 2025. You may be shocked at some of the prices that have increased far more than others, some beyond belief. So here we go. Here's what you could get for your £1 in 1971. A loaf of bread. You could get 11 loaves of bread for £1, as a loaf of bread back in 1971 was around 9p. Today's prices, you're paying around £1.45. A pint of milk. For your £1, you could get 20 pints of milk for £1. Back in 1971, 5 pence for a pint of milk. Today's price averages around 59p. So that's 555% increase. Now, interestingly, the 4-pinter, by the way, it's not 4 pints. You actually get 2 litres, which is less. But if that carton would have gone up with inflation over the years, that price should be around £10.45 today. So that really doesn't make sense, does it? But we all know that milk is a loss leader. Down the pub, if you wanted a pint of beer, you could have got 6.5 pints for your £1 in 1971, as beer was around 15p. Now the average price of beer can range between £5 and £7.50, so I've gone for £5.50 as an average price as of 2025. So you could go down the pub, buy a packet of cigarettes, have nearly 4 pints or 3 shorts with a mixer, and walk home with fish and chips just for £1. And here's why. Cigarettes. Packet of cigarettes back in 1971 was around 27 pence. So you could get just under 4 packs for your £1. As today, £14 would buy you a packet of cigarettes. So that's an increase of 5,085%. Now I'm talking about percentages for a reason, and I'll go on to that a little bit later on. A gallon of petrol. You could get 3 gallons for £1. 34p was the price as of June 1971 for a gallon of petrol. Today would be £5.89. Going down the chippy. Fish and chips 5 times for £1. Today, that means that it was 20 pence for fish and chips. The average price today is around £9.90, and I know that does vary from where you live, but an average price would be an increase of 4,850%. That's in 54 years. A portion of chips on their own, you could get 10 bags, because that was 10 pence. Today, an average portion of chips is £3. What about potato fritter or scallops, depending on where you come from? You could get 100 scallops for £1 in 1971, as they were a penny back then. And if you buy one today, you're looking around 80p. And more often than not, you can see straight through them. Chocolate. Well, I've chosen a Mars bar because it's popular, isn't it? 50 Mars bars for £1 back in 1971. Because a Mars bar would cost you 2 pence. The larger bar that we buy today for about 89p. Well, I say larger bar, however, we all know about shrinkage, don't we? The Mars bar back in 1971 was around 57 grams. That's for the 89p bar. Today, you only get 50 grams for that amount of money. You could buy 15 cans of Coke because the price was 6p. Now, the price of Coke does vary anywhere from £1 to £3, I've seen at some venues. Eggs. The price of fresh eggs. Why not get 4 dozen? Because that's what you could get for £1 in 1971. 25p for a dozen of large eggs. Today's prices, I haven't got a clue, because you've got so many different types of eggs, haven't you? You got your free range, your roaming around the farm type of eggs, organic eggs, caged eggs and all that. But I don't think even 25 pence would buy you 1 egg today. Right, the reason I've gone about these inflation numbers is due to this reason. According to the Office of National Statistics, £1 in 1971 is the equivalent to the purchasing power of £17.05 in 2023. I couldn't do 2025 because I couldn't find any statistics. So, in 52 years, that is an increase of £16.05. So the pound at an average inflation rate of at 5.61% between 1971 and 2023, this produced a cumulative price index increase of 1,604%. Now that doesn't make any sense, does it? Because if you look at the increased taxes on fuel, tobacco, alcohol, you can see that some of them are ranging between 4,000 and 5,000%. Right, let's go to the supermarket. 9 packs of butter for £1. Now I've looked at this and it was for half a pound of butter, but today you only get 500 grams, don't you? So half a pound of butter is actually 568 grams. You could buy that for 11.5 pence. Today's price is around £1.30. 2 jars of coffee for your £1 in 1971. That's for an 8-ounce jar, by the way. Now, an 8-ounce jar works out at 226 grams. Today, they're sold in 200 grams, and 200 grams would set you back £5.50. 300 grams would set you back £7.50. 30 bags of crisps for £1, eh? 30 bags. Because Golden Wonder, full size, not this rubbishy tiny little packs that you get in these multi-packs today. Full size Golden Wonder, 3p a bag. That's how much is a packet of crisps today? It's over £1. 5 Vesta curries. Now, I didn't look at the price of these today, but I remember them so well. 20p, that's how much they cost. So you would get 5 Vesta curries for £1. They were just like boiling in the bag. You just added a bit of water and hey presto, you got yourself a curry. We thought it was fabulous back in them days. Here's a Christmas favourite that we all like to moan about. The size of a tin of roses or a plastic container. I reckon today you probably get 10 sweets. Okay, I'm probably exaggerated, but we all know they have shrunk time and time again. So what I did, I weighed up £1's worth in 1971 for £1, right? And that today would cost you £16.70. Plus, you get a tin where you can put your baked cakes in. You can't really put that in a little plastic tub, unless, of course, they don't rise. If you wanted to buy a record that was in the charts, a 45 vinyl record, you could get just under 3 in 1971 for your £1. They were 37p each, so to be fair, you could comfortably buy 2 and still get some change. Travel. If you wanted to take the bus and pay individually for each fare, now bearing in mind prices did vary on where you lived, but the average amount of journeys you could take for your £1 in 1971 were 20, because each journey was around 5p. Now today, bus fares range from £2.20 in the West Midlands, where I live, up to £3 if you live in the more rural areas. This excludes childfare and travel cards, etc. Now I can remember us 4 kids getting a bus to the pictures in Dudley back in 1971 for the Saturday morning film for £1. And that was for all of us. It was 2p each on the bus each way, because it's our fare for kids, so that adds up to 16p. 60p for us all to go in there and watch the movie, plus we had 24p left to share some sweets. I dare not even think about what that would work out in today's prices. But I did do it. So it would be £24.76. I looked at the special offers for kids during the summer holidays for the cinema, and the bus fare, and the price of a bag of crisps and a full-size chocolate bar and a few boiled sweets. I hope you appreciate that it took me ages. Now, it's quite hard to get a rail fare price, but I have worked out a fare from London Waterloo to Farnborough in 1971, because it was £1. 51 miles day return, and it's worth remembering that British Rail once charged for mileage before changing over to the charge of most popular routes and really awkward routes before their privatisation. So you could get from London to Farnborough and back after 9:30 for £1. Today's standard fare is £22.50, but you can get a ticket cheaper online for about 15 quid. A one-way ticket from London to Brighton was also £1. Fancy a packet of biscuits while you're on the train? Well, you could get 25 packets for £1, as they're around £4 a packet. I've chosen custard creams. But obviously today that price varies. Around £1 today, but if you go to places like Aldi or Lidl's, they'd charge you about 65p. So that wouldn't even get you 2 packs. Wouldn't even get you 1 pack if you shopped at the Co-op. Want to post a letter? Well, today a first class stamp would set you back £1.70. Crikey. A second class 87p. And you would have to watch the size and the weight for that cost. Large letters cost more. Back in 71, you could post off 56 Christmas cards or 56 letters, first class, for your £1, as you would pay 3p to post first class and 2.5p for second. The highest value stamp was actually 9p, albeit there was a 50p stamp, was introduced in 1970, but this was valid for payment. So for example, if you sent off for something, instead of a postal order, you could send them a 50p stamp, and that was valid to be redeemed for cash. I'm not sure whether you can do that today. There was actually a £1 stamp that came out in 1992, that's according to my research, but I'm sure it was earlier. I'd love to know if anyone would care to comment about that. Remember the dog licence? You could get you could get 2 dog licences and have change for plenty of chum doggy food. When decimalisation came about, the price was 37.5p. Now get this. In 1984, the price went down to 37p, as the half-a-pence was withdrawn. So the price did not change for 16 years until it was withdrawn in England, Scotland and Wales. In Northern Ireland, you still require one. A dog licence was renewed every year. No increase whatsoever, and it's the only example I could find where the price never went up. If it went with inflation between 1971 and 1987, I've worked out that dog licence would cost you over £4. Right, for £1, this is family allowance. For £1, that would provide cash for 2 kids in 1971, as it was 50p per child. Well, technically it was 75p for your second child, but if to say a child and a half, well, I don't think that would be very fair, would it? But if you were to look at 2 families having 1 child each, 2.50. If you were unfortunate to be unemployed on the dole in 1971, you could live for 2.5 days on £1 on unemployment benefit. That's according to the government. The weekly single person's allowance was £3. That's without rent allowance. Now, in order to afford all these luxurious items in 1971 and pay those extortionate prices, obviously he needed a good job. Well, men over 18 would have to work for an hour and a half on average to earn £1, as the hourly rate was around 77p. The average working week back then was 40 hours, so that would earn you £30.80. However, women didn't get it so good. Women would have to work for just over 2 hours to get their pay for £1. It was unequal, as their hourly pay was 49p. That's 28p difference. That's a massive amount in 71. So their earnings weekly were just under £20. The fight for equal pay for women was recognised in 1970. But after many years of protest, you can see that it didn't quite work out straight away. In some cases, this discrimination still exists. Just wanted to add one more thing, and that's Stork SB margarine. I don't even know whether you can get it today. Oh, you can. 6.5p in 1971, 71p today. So you could get quite a few for £1. Anyway, I'll leave it there, and I'll just say thank you so much for listening and putting up with my sniffles. And I've got plenty more of these nostalgic look back at the 70s and social history of the UK on my channel. Just leaves me to say thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks again, Mickey.